The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Welcome back, Iredell County, to another episode of the Canaan Report. This is your host, Micah Phelps, and we got Michael Kubiniec, a.k.a. Captain K, in the studio with us today. Mike, go ahead and say hello to everyone.
Good morning, Micah.
Good. Well, we got a special show, folks. We got to sound the alarms. We've got a rotten, rank, vile, corrupt federal government that's being exposed in real time. The fake news isn't talking about it, so we're going to talk about it here on this show. But before we get into it, we need to start with a prayer. We got Big Reese there in the production studio. Go ahead and bless our show with a prayer, brother.
God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to do what we do every day. We're going to continue to give you the glory. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reese. Well, Cap, welcome back, man.
Thank you. Great to be here.
They didn't come after you with pitchforks and shovels after the first show.
Well, they're still sharpening them, I think.
Are they? They're still looking for a way to get him.
That's right.
Well, we're going to just focus on national stuff today. I'm sure you've been watching what's going on out there, keeping up with it.
Yeah, I stay pretty much on top of world events and national events.
Well,
I'm a political junkie.
Well, it's looking a lot like we got a lot of corruption in the federal government in pretty much every agency. They've been taking our tax dollars for the past 4 years and spending it on transgender plays in foreign countries, calling it foreign aid. How's that foreign aid?
Well, you know what the real blowback is? And you don't hear it reported yet. So every wasteful thing that we're spending it on, Sesame Street in Iraq, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Every one of those things has somebody's name attached to it. Yeah. That's what they're so scared about, is finding out who's all those names that are attached to all this junk.
Well, last I checked, Elon Musk was trying to get access to the IRS data. And you know what they want that for? They're going to look at all these bureaucrats. Like, if you're working for the federal government, you can't have another job. Like, that's in your contract. You're not allowed to do it. So if you're getting money on the side, millions and millions of dollars, you know where it's at? On your tax returns. And I would not want to be in D.C. right now having, took a bunch of money, got it in my pocket somehow through schemes. But it's looking like that's what's been happening in the past 4 years.
Well, it's probably been a both-party thing for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Revolving door of people working in industry. Then they go into government to oversee the industry that they were just from. Mm-hmm. And then when they're done doing that, they go back into industry. Because while they're regulating the industry, they're lining up their next gig for later on.
That's the swamp.
Yep.
That's the swamp we call Washington, D.C., sadly. But, it just disgusts me, man. Our country has been suffering from inflation. Families have been just torn apart because they can't pay the bills. And when you see all this money, billions and billions and billions and billions, probably going to end up being trillions of dollars once you start looking into the Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid waste. They're showing people on Social Security, 150 years old, still getting a check. Mm-hmm. And there's millions and millions and millions of these people. Wow. Did we really go into debt because of theft? Did we just spend our country into oblivion because no one wanted to look at the books?
Well, 50 million here, 100 million there may seem like small chump change in the grand scheme of a $7 trillion budget. Yeah. But it'll add up. It'll add up. It
was $5 trillion 2 or 4 years ago, before COVID. And then they started spending a bunch of money to get through COVID, which was just nonsense to shut our country down over the flu in the first place. But what can you do when your National Institute for Health director is lying to you the whole time? Why'd they pardon Fauci? Did anyone know about that? Why'd we pardon Fauci? Why did Fauci need a pardon?
Why did anyone need a pardon for something that they hadn't been accused of doing?
Yeah, well, what it's looking like to me and what all this receipts are showing is even when Trump was in charge, we had rogue elements of the federal government that was siphoning off our tax dollars and funneling to nonprofit organizations, which would therefore start influencing election outcomes. I'm wondering how much that went to the BLM riots. I'm wondering how much of it funded Antifa.
How much went to fund the Wuhan lab?
Well, not only that, all the money went to the fake news too. Associated Press, Politico, CNN, all of them were getting our tax dollars to lie to us, ladies and gentlemen. And Very upset about that.
Did you hear that I think it's the Associated Press is no longer allowed in the presidential briefing room each day?
They shouldn't be. They're getting $50 million a year from the taxpayers, I think, close to, or maybe that's over several years, but still $50 million.
Why?
What are they telling us?
Yeah.
That's called state-funded propaganda is what that's called.
Well, that's at NPR as well.
NPR, PBS, I mean, all of them, CNN, BBC, MSNBC. Everybody was getting money to gaslight us, to lie to us, to feed us a bunch of nonsense while the theft just kept on going. That's our federal government, folks. It's your federal government.
Mm-hmm.
But thank God we got big guns, Donald Trump in there. Got old Elon Musk, too. He just brought some genius. And you see how they're attacking him. They're trying to destroy that man. They're trying to make everybody hate him and say he's up to this sinister stuff, when all he's really doing is bringing in some geniuses that are not political, that are looking at the books and have some tech skills, trying to figure out where the money went.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating to watch. Every day something comes out with just incredible waste. Like just today, it came out that the Department of Education gets funded $240 billion in 2024.
Where'd the money go?
Only 13% of that gets sent out to the states.
So out of $240 billion, we only got what?
That $31 billion.
$31 billion.
So 87% goes to overhead. So that's the problem with government is they use these agencies as a job employment service.
Yeah.
So we're paying 87% of $240 billion to pay people to do a job, and only 13% of it gets out to the actual schools.
Well, I saw where they cut the funding to medical research. They lowered the overhead, the administrative overhead, from like 40-something down to 15%.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everyone out there saying he cut medical funding. No, he's cutting off the roaches that are getting rich off this stuff, the political people, when the money should be going into the research, the doctors, the stuff they need, but they're not getting it. It's the 4 or 5 overhead management they have that aren't really doing anything. They're not contributing to that one bit. The government cuts the check and the scientists do the research. Well, why are all the middlemen getting a check?
Well, ask this question. When you have universities having tens of $billions of endowment.
Mm-hmm. But they still got their hand out to the taxpayer.
Bingo. Why is the federal government giving money to colleges and universities with tens of $billions in endowment? And if you got tens of billions of dollars of money, even just your simple investments alone will provide you enough income to do that stuff, wouldn't it?
Well, what is our colleges producing? A bunch of kids that hate America, that's out there doing jihadis. I mean, they're camping out in the, what's the little word, the little yard out front of the main building, shutting down education, and no one's got the guts to say, all right, you're here on a foreign visa, not anymore. You're out of here.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about, if we have time, about the school loan program.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just mad and fed up, and I hope people can see we're mad for you.
I think 70-something million people are fed up.
I know.
With the status quo.
You got the fake news out there not even reporting the truth. They're still lying. They're still attacking. They're trying to undermine every single thing Trump tries to do to try to change this country and expose all this nonsense. And we got to watch it. We got to sit here and put up with this crap. Well, that's why we got on the radio, folks, because we're not putting up with it in Trump era 2.0. We're going to buck, and we're going to buck, and we're going to keep bucking right once we come back from a break. Welcome back, Iredell County. This is your host, Micah Phelps with the Canaan Report, and we got Captain K in the studio with us today, and we were just having a show on where'd our tax money go? I don't know. We're going to get to the bottom of that. Doge, the Democrat Congress people and the senators and all their little minions, they're out there calling Doge the devil. What do you think, Cap? Is Doge the devil?
Well, let's say you got 70-year-old Congress people banging on the doors of the Department of Education.
Mm-hmm. Was
it last week?
Yeah, about a week ago.
I think it's a bad look.
I mean,
it's such a bad look.
They're looking so crazy.
I'm sorry. It's like, as far as I'm concerned, keep it up, because they're digging their hole deeper and deeper. Chuck Schumer, blaming Doge for and Trump for his Corona beer. And, did you know that avocados are in guacamole?
No.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said. That's what they had. That's the contribution they have to make to this whole exposing government corruption stuff.
So, it's what Elon Musk says is common sense. There was a press conference last week in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
Did you see it? With Musk was in there.
Yeah.
And
Had
Trump,
his kid.
and had his little boy.
Yeah.
He was cracking.
Well, it's because you had Democrats out there screaming bloody murder, like, "Oh my God, they're stealing our information." No, they're not. They're getting their information to find out where the money went.
I mean, the checkbook is the checkbook. I mean, there's nothing classified about the checkbook.
Well, this is what it is. Donald Trump is a businessman. He got billions of dollars running his business the way he runs it. And every week he'd sit down at the end of the week and he wanted to write the checks. Like generally you have accountants that cash the checks for your organizations and stuff. He wanted to cut them checks. So he'd be looking through the checks and be like, "Oh, they're getting too much money here. Let me set this to the side. We need to look into that and find out what's going on." That's all they're doing with the federal government right now. They went to the Treasury and said, "We want to see what we're spending money on. Where's the money going?" Mm-hmm. Well, then he put out the executive orders to freeze all the foreign aid. Well, next thing you know, Elon finds out, they're still spending money on foreign aid. What's this agency called? USAID. Let's go look into it. 2 days later, they're up to no good. Bye-bye. So they dismantled it. And what do the Democrats do? They say, no, we need it. We need it. We need our agencies that are taking our money and they're funneling it to all of our nonprofits who help us get reelected.
But it's interesting about USAID or USAID is when you look at the org chart for the government, although it supposedly functions under this Department of State, it doesn't report to the Department of State. So the head of USAID is this, well, he's an unelected bureaucrat, but his accountability is to, it's kind of weird to
Well,
whom,
Congress, right? For the past 4 years, you'd have random congressmen come out there and say, "Hey, we got questions about where you're spending money." And the people running USA blew them off. Yeah. They said, "We don't have to report nothing to you. Right. You don't oversee us." Now we're looking into it. And the Democrats who 2 years ago said, "You're not allowed to know what we're doing," they're screaming bloody murder. They're saying the house is on fire. But it's really not.
Yeah. And just like every expenditure should have, and you heard Musk talk about this, they should have some sort of a code. Yeah. Because every spending is classified in some way.
But they didn't have codes.
No codes. And then it should say where the money came from.
Yeah.
So here's where it's coming from, where it's going to, and it's categorized with certain spending code. And when you have that blank, that just shows
money going out the door, no accountability, nothing, no knowing nothing. And it's sad. Billions of dollars. We're $36 trillion in debt, and they're spending money like a drunken housewife out on vacation.
And the thing about it is any public business, any publicly traded company has to abide by the accounting rules set forth. Yeah. And when you don't do that, then you'll fail an audit, and then you'll be sanctioned by, I don't know if it's the Security and Exchange Commission, but you have to uphold certain level of accounting standards. Yeah. And why doesn't the government?
Do as I say, not as I do. That's the philosophy of our government for probably the past 30 years.
Well, here's the thing about USAID and like many other government agencies is, again, the agency is a vehicle for employing people. Yeah. Okay? So they get this money in, and these people then handle the money and send it out. Mm-hmm. So the money that they get funded by Congress funds these people's jobs. Yeah. Could be very non-value added. Some may be value added. Yeah. But you get non-value added jobs, and their whole function is to get rid of the money they get.
Yeah. And we know what they did with the money. You know what they did with the money, Reese? They spent it on gay orgies all across the world. That's what they did with it. Funding transgender operas, sick comic books, Sesame Street, all that nonsense. Meanwhile, we're struggling to eat. We got inflation. We're paying for all this crap. Yeah. I'm fed up with it.
Yeah, it's insane.
Well, what is Doge? Well, I'm going to tell everyone, what is Doge out there? Doge, there was something called the United States Digital Services. This was created during the Obama administration, and it was tasked with updating the IT infrastructure of the federal government. That was their task, and it was put underneath the executive branch. Well, as soon as Trump gets in there, he signs an executive order taking this U.S. Department of Digital Services, and he renamed it to Doge, and he gave it to Elon Musk and his team. Then they got a bunch of super geniuses, and they said, all right, let's see where the money's going. So they sent them to the Treasury Department so they can get read-only access. They may have right access. I don't know. At this point, I could care less.
They wouldn't have right access.
At this point, I could care less.
It doesn't matter. You just need read access.
Well, they got their read access, and that's when they started finding out who's getting the money. And it's just so much waste. Reese, you got their website up. Pull up Doge website for us real quick so everyone watching can see. But we got a website out there. It's called doge.gov. And they're telling us everything they're doing that the fake news doesn't want to tell us. They want to lie and say a bunch of nonsense and gaslight us. But we're smart, capable, free-thinking people, and we can go look this stuff up ourselves, and we can find it at doge.gov. And you can see here, they've been working on this website for a little bit, but they put out all the information about where the money's going. What did Elon say right here? Numbers of click on that Elon Musk, according to the Social Security database. See if we can pull that up. But he put out some numbers today showing Social Security. You got hundreds of millions of people actually probably about 30 or 40 million people over 100 who's been getting money for 30, 40 years, I think. Something crazy like that. Well, Reese is working on it. He's going to pull it up. But Cap, I mean, the theft is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. And, if you have like a loved one, your spouse or somebody that dies, and they're on Social Security, in theory, if you don't report it right away and you keep getting money, then the government will automatically take that back.
Uh-huh.
That's how it's supposed to work.
Well, EPA, there was $20 billion. It was, what's that? James O'Keefe. You heard of him? He does all the undercover spy operation stuff. All right, here we found it.
So we've got some people that are 180 years old.
Yeah. So between 100 and 109 years old, there is 4.7 million people drawing Social Security. Through 110 and 119 years old, there's 3.6 million people drawing Social Security. 120 to 129, 3.4 million. 130 and up, 3.9, 140s, 3.5, 150s, 1.3, 160s, 121,000, 170s, there's 6,000 people, 180s, there's 700 people, and 190, there's about 450 people out there, all drawing Social Security. Now, Cap, you're fast with mouth. How many people 100 up are getting Social Security right now? Well, we got 10, 9, 12.
I was looking from
about 26 million.
Well, I think it's like
about 26 million people 100 up getting Social Security right now. Do we have 26 million people 100 plus years old in this country? Is that feasible? Is that real?
Nope.
Is that possible? This is just Social Security, folks. We're not talking about Medicare and Medicaid. This is just Social Security, and that's every year. All this money's going out, all of it.
And if you kind of do the math, that would be, let's say you had $30,000 per recipient.
Yeah. So you got 24 million getting 30,000. What is that, a year?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. That's a big number.
Yeah, we could figure it out. But it's
we'll figure it out during the break.
Multi-millions.
But this is getting stolen from us. But the politicians say, oh, they're taking our Social Security. Someone's taking it.
Well, it'd be strange to find out, to say, is this actually going into a bank account of somebody who's long been dead?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it going into a relative of that person who's knowingly never reported that person's death and then is stealing that money?
That's why we need access to the IRS database, so we can throw in the Social Security numbers of the people getting all these checks.
Yeah, but with that data, where the money's going is in the system. Mm-hmm. So they know bank accounts.
Yeah.
I don't believe they cut paper checks anymore.
No.
It's all electronic.
Yeah.
So you know where it's going.
There's a paper trail. And we got some super geniuses out there following the money. My only regret is I'm not up there helping them follow it. I'd love to be a part of the DOJ team. Like, all right, y'all tell me who's up to no good. We going to go get them. We going to get them.
Yeah, well, those people are probably working 100 hours a week.
I'm cool with that. If I had the freedom to go lock up all the bad elements of our federal government, do real investigations into them, I'd love that. That'd be like the gig of a lifetime right there. I would die happy having contributed some genius to that process.
Yeah, and I bet you when they figure this out, and what was it? Social Security is supposed to go broke in 2033.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bet you it'll extend it by like 20 years or something.
Well,
a big number.
We're going to have to watch it from here on out.
Yeah.
Now that we know it's easy stillings, but I wonder where the money went. I hope they find it. I really do. But that's Doge, ladies and gentlemen. They're doing God's work out there for us. But everybody who was in on the take, all the fraudsters, all the liars, all the thieves, they're the ones screaming bloody murder right now because it's their pocketbooks that's getting affected.
And we're coming for you.
And we're not only coming for you, we're going to get you. We're going to get you. We're going to bring you down to Iredell County. We're going to take you up to North Iredell and let them country boys have their way with you. That's what we're going to do with you.
And the sheriff.
And the sheriff.
Put you in jail.
We're coming back after this break. Welcome back, Iredell County. This is your host, Micah Phelps of the Canaan Report, and we got Captain K in the studio with us today, and we were just exposing all the rotten, foul garbage that's been happening on the federal level. Just absolute garbage. Just a bunch of spending porn, as Senator Kennedy likes to call it. And it literally is spending porn. That's what they're spending it on. Transgender parties all over the world while we're struggling. But you had a number for us. Remember how we just talked about all these people over 100 getting Social Security every year?
Yeah.
What's our number on that?
So we said that there was 24 million people.
Over 100 getting Social Security.
And if the average was 30,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's just, you said.
The average.
That's 720 billion.
A year.
720
billion a year that we're supposedly spending on people over 100. I don't see it. I
hope that math is right. I think it is.
I hope we're wrong. I hope the theft is not that bad. But something tells me it is. Because that's why they're screaming so loud for us not to look into it. And they're trying to demonize the people exposing everything. The fake news. That's what we're going to talk about this whole section, or this whole segment, is the fake news and how they've just been operating hand in hand in all this nonsense. USAID. One thing, Matt Benz. You can look up on X. He's been on Joe Rogan recently, and he was on Tucker Carlson. You can pull that up and listen to their podcast, about 2 hours each. But he was explaining how USAID was a hit job. Like it would find people who were pushing conservative stuff all across the world, whether it be in games and other countries, just anywhere in general. They would be doing opposition research on them, then funding the fake news to put out hit pieces to try to tear these people down, discredit them, destroy them. This is our news. This is what it's become. Sad.
Yeah. I think when it was first started out, I think it was meant to counter the Russian propaganda and what Soviet Union.
Kennedy.
Yeah.
When Kennedy was president.
When it was Soviet Union influence into Western world, and then this was to counter that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a lot of it did some good, but it just morphs into let too many hands in the cookie jar.
Yeah. Well, what they did,
in the wrong direction.
They're taking the money and they're spending it on nonsense. They're trying to destroy people. They're trying to undermine governments. They're pushing just a whole bunch of lies out there. And when they do that on the back of our tax dollars, what that's saying is our government is evil. And we don't need an evil government. We need some principled, disciplined people in our government, not folks who take our tax dollars and try to sow instability around the world while funding transgender parties. God, I'm just so fed up with that. But that's our fake news. They're taking the money. They're getting millions and millions and millions of dollars. The fake news isn't going to report it, but you can find the truth out there on the Doge website. They're reporting where all the money's going. They're putting all the receipts.
And you'd think the media is all about accountability for those in power. Yeah. That's how, going back to the founding of our country.
Yeah, but I saw it was 60 Minutes. I was looking at clips of that over the weekend, that episode. And they're out there talking about how free speech is the problem and how free speech is what led to Hitler doing all his crazy stuff. Like, that's the kind of These are sick people out there, folks. They're sick people. They don't like the freedom of speech. They like living off our tax dollars and having a great old time, and we pay for it all while they try to lecture us about what's right and what's wrong when they're up to no good. Just complete no good. Even on the local level. The local level, I would argue, is just as bad. I know you've suffered from some stuff like that.
Well, we just can't have society as everybody has their hand out.
Yeah.
We have to, do you know who Corey Brooks is?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of that name? He's a reverend, a pastor in Chicago.
No.
And he's an African-American.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a piece this day or two ago in the Wall Street Journal. And he's so thankful that Trump has appealed to the African-American community, and his vote levels went up and everything. Mm-hmm. But he tells his community, stop holding out your hand and start fending for yourself.
Yeah.
And people need to be more self-sufficient and less relying on the government.
Yeah. The fake news needs to stop being so reliant on the government because they just take our money and lie to us. Like they censor us, they slander us. Heck, even 2 years ago when we were on the radio, I mean, the lengths people went to shut us up and slander us. I'm telling you, it's like people don't want to have a conversation about things that matter. Things like $720 billion a year going to fraud and Social Security. Like that's something we should be talking about as a nation instead of paying for it all. But no one wants to have those talks. Yep. But we do on the Canaan Report, on WSIC. We like to have these conversations. And we want other people to have these conversations too. So we're hoping this show gets some truth out there and fires people up to say, all right, we need to look where the rest of the money's going, like the Department of Defense. I'm sure there's a lot of foul stuff in there. That's the Republicans.
Well, I spent a long time in the Department of Defense.
You did. You were a captain in the Navy, weren't you?
And when that organization cannot pass an audit for 8 years in a row, it doesn't surprise me.
Yep.
Because there was just so much stupid stuff that I would see too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem with governmental budgets. First of all, we need to make it like a 2-year budget because this 1 year goat rope every year is it wastes of time.
Yeah.
But when you have a system that says you have to spend every penny you get, because if you don't, you'll get less next year.
Yeah.
So there's no incentive.
So that's why they're spending it on transgender orgies all over the world.
Even stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But if you have an incentive to save and be more efficient and effective with the money you get, there should be incentives behind that. Mm-hmm. So if you were given X million dollars or billions in your budget and you didn't spend it all because, you know what, we did our mission without spending it all, there should be a reward factor and not a penalty.
Well, that's what this is a bureaucrat's only job in life, okay? I want more money and I want more power. That's what they're always going to be after. More money, more authority. That's all they ever want. And I'm asking myself, do we need all these bureaucracies in our life? Do we need 240 some different federal agencies?
Oh, if you ever looked at this like big, sort of like a Venn diagram of the agencies, there's so much overlap.
They're building that on Doge.
Yeah, there's so much duplicity.
That's one thing Doge is trying to do. When you have 250 agencies and each of these agencies have dozens of sub-agencies underneath them, who's doing what? Who's spending money on what? Nobody knows. That's what Doge is trying to figure out.
That's what goes to is the federal government has become a job agency, an employment agency.
Money racket.
Instead of carrying out whatever vital functions that should be determined by the Constitution.
Yeah.
The Constitution says, here's what the federal government can do. And if it doesn't say it, it can't do it.
What they can do is explicitly stated in the U.S. Constitution.
I know, and there's been a lot.
They're not doing it.
It's been very well exploited over
They're not
many
following
years.
it. They're not following it. I mean, Social Security, when did our federal government ever get the expressive authority in the Constitution to create that?
I know. We need to have some billionaire lawyer to challenge all these things for constitutionality.
Well, this is what I want everyone out there, everybody watching, everybody listening. This is what I want y'all to do. I want y'all to think back to 1776. And you had men such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, Samuel Adams. You had these studs walking around. And if someone said, hey, you're spending $720 billion, it's getting stolen every year, how would you put up with that? Now, do you think those men would just, it's just the nature of the game? Or do you think they'd be rounding people up like they did with the Liberty Tree? Mm-hmm. You know, that's where we come from. That's our roots. And when you see all this crap taking place, all I can say is thank God for Donald Trump. Thank God for Elon Musk.
Yeah, I'll make a deal with you. Get me $1 billion, and then I'll bring these lawsuits that challenge what we do in government, that it's unconstitutional. Well,
let's just follow the left's playbook. Let's go find a federal agency and just get them to cut the check to it all. How's that sound? Because they gave, millions to the American Bar Association, a bunch of scheming lawyers. Justin, we still love you. I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about all your colleagues. But we got to go to a break. We'll be back. Welcome back, Iredell County. This is your host, Micah Phelps with the Canaan Report, and we got Captain K in the studio with us today. And we were just going over all the fraud, waste, and abuse, and theft, and thievery, and just rotten, vile stuff our federal government's been up to for the past 4 years. And we were breaking it down for everyone, what's happening, because, our fake news is not doing it, so we got to. DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, this is being spearheaded by Elon Musk and a team of super geniuses. What they're doing is they're auditing our federal government. They're following the money. It's what people have been screaming for. I mean, I've been fighting to reduce the size of government my entire political career. And to see that this is finally happening, I'm just joyous. But then we see these Democrats and how they're acting. Just screaming bloody murder, acting crazy, just absolute crazy. You were talking about crazy Maxine Waters knocking on the Department of Education, threatening the security guard. You see how she was talking to him?
Yeah, but didn't you love that security guard?
He
just looked like he's like so bored looking, and like she wasn't even there as far as he was concerned.
Look, that man needs to be promoted to Secret Service. He needs to be protecting Donald Trump out there. He was just stood tall to their craziness, and you could see it in his face. I mean, they're just sitting there berating him. And he ain't have nothing to do. He's just trying to keep this angry mob out the building, because who knows what them crazy Dems would have done. They might have came in and burned the place down. They've done it before.
Yep. But, it's just incredible that you see speeches on the on the floor of the Senate or the floor of the House by Democrats. You see them protesting out in front of the Capitol.
And they're lying. That's the biggest thing. I've been watching them. I've been listening to what they have to say. And all they can do is get up there and just say a bunch of nonsense about Elon Musk, like he's stealing people's information. He's stealing this. He's stealing that. No, he's calling out the thieves. It's you people in Congress who ain't done nothing about this for 20, 30 years, but you've been sitting in there like your Nancy Pelosi's, your Chuck Schumers. They've been in there 20, 30 years while this crap's been going on, and now you want to sit here and say that the new boss is up to no good, call it a coup? No, the coup is what y'all did back in 2020 when you stole the election, because they stole it. They used the little fake mail-in ballots, and I wouldn't be surprised if our government dollars funded that crap. Yeah, I really wouldn't.
Well, when we have these Congress passing the budget, and they fail to pass all the individual budgets, and they throw it all in the big one lump thing, that's how you get this crap. Because then this pot of money goes to the USAID, okay? And then all these things that Congress is not telling them in probably most cases how it gets spent. So it's kind of a backdoor method for implementing social programs and social engineering that's not authorized by Congress.
Yeah, they're funding the fake news to gaslight us with nonsense. They're putting out hit pieces to anyone who is against the transgender mafia out there. That's what's been going on.
It's way more than that. It's cockroach study and wherever. And it's like
every year, Senator Rand Paul, he does something for Christmas. He'll just get out and put out all the waste and fraud and abuse, and he's been doing it his whole time he's been in the Senate. But it keeps going on and on and on, and no one stops it. But now we're seeing that it takes a president with some big balls to get in there and put his foot down to this crap. And I, for one, I'm very happy that Donald Trump had the election stolen in 2020. You know why?
It's working out better.
You know why?
It's working out
because
better.
he's had time to sit here and look at all the rotten stuff and think about, what happened, like where mistakes were made, how you can do it better. Well, the biggest mistake he made is coming in thinking he can govern the swamp. You saw that when you got into the school board, but that's another situation. But he comes in, he thought he was a good enough leader to manage the swamp. But when you got your own employees in the federal government knifing you in the back and taking our tax dollars and funding your opposition, kind of hard to govern like that. So this time he comes in, he just says, all right, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. Oh, you're a disgruntled employee, you're fired. But they're trying to stop him.
Yeah.
They're going to the judicial branch and they're trying to stop him from doing what's expressly stated in the U.S. Constitution, giving him the authority to run them agencies however he sees fit.
Yeah. So during his 4 years of being out of government, he really learned so much about government, right?
Yep.
So imagine he would have got reelected, and then even if he would have put in a new team and transitioned to a new team, he didn't learn those lessons until this last 4 years. So the people that he's brought in, I mean, he didn't have a relationship with Elon Musk 4 years ago.
No.
He didn't have a relationship with so many other people that he's bringing in.
Yeah, but
so it's actually turned out better for our country, I think, in the long run.
Yeah, I'll never forget when Elon went full Donald Trump mode. And it was after they tried to kill him, when they shot him in Butler. I mean, it was inches and he would have been gone. And I would tell people what our plan was, but we might never be allowed back on the radio if we said that. So we'll just keep that, hush hush. But when you see all this, they tried to kill him. They spent money against him. They undermined him. You had all these agencies just doing the opposite of whatever the boss said. You can't be having that. Those are ideologues in government. Those are rogue bureaucrats who need to be purged. They need to be fired. They need to be investigated too on top of it, because a lot of them made money. If you're giving out contracts and you're getting jobs with those companies you gave contracts right afterwards, maybe those contracts should be pulled and you should be investigated on top of it.
Yeah.
That's like, if we don't do something about it, it's just going to happen again. Because you know how the pendulum swings. Once people get elected, then it swings the other way. Well, if we go through and we cut all this and we expose all this, but for somehow they steal the election again and they want to swing it the other way, well, we need to be ready for that.
Yeah.
But I don't think America is going to fall for that.
Well, there are about 3,000 some odd positions that the president gets to put in place.
Yeah.
So if a new president comes in, why not just fire everybody?
Yeah.
And you could just say, hey, you might be a good guy or gal, you get to reapply, but you just clean it out from every position that you're allowed to select that person for. Just clean it out on day one.
You got to.
And then start to build the team you want. Because guess what? When you're in charge, you can be the CEO of a company, doesn't matter, or starting your own small business. You get to decide who you want on your team.
Mm-hmm. Elections have consequences.
Yeah. And the people on your team, they work for the boss and they do what the boss wants.
Yeah.
So you don't have somebody in the State Department saying, you know what, I'm going to decide what we're going to do for Western Africa or Australia. No, you don't get to decide. Your boss gets to decide. And then you do what the boss tells you to do. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to do that, you say, well, then I'll resign.
Mm-hmm. Well, they need to clean house.
That's how it works.
They need to clean house, and they're cleaning house. They're going through agencies. They're getting rid of all the probationary employees right now, because the way the federal government's set up, like your first 2 years, you're a probationary employee. You're auditioning for a job, basically. Well, new boss came in and said, "Oh, y'all, we don't need you no more," and we really don't. Not when we're $36 trillion in debt, and we're spending money on garbage, paying off our fake news. Yeah. And the world is happy. Like USAID, when you look at that, the world is happy. They're seeing like, all right, maybe America's not up to no good no more. Maybe they're not trying to stir up division and instability all over the world. That's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you got Facebook, Meta.
Yeah.
They just announced layoffs.
Yeah.
Okay. So what Mark Zuckerberg said was, you know what? I'm raising the bar for standards of performance that we're going to expect.
Yeah.
And so we're going to raise that bar. Therefore, there's going to be, people that don't meet it.
Yep.
You're gone.
Yep. Well, what I think is happening is all these crazy woke people are just getting fired all across America. And I hope they are, because if you can go out there and stand up and actually denounce what Doge is doing and make up lies, you probably don't deserve a spot at the big boys' political table giving opinions. You really don't. 720 billion, that's just Social Security.
Yeah. But, if you had your own small business, are you going to have extra headcount that doesn't provide the value for your business?
No.
Are you going to have people who work for you that don't do what you want them to do?
Yeah.
No. Generally, you're gonna bring down your headcount to that need to run and grow your business.
Yeah.
You're not going to have extra people hanging on.
Well, what does government?
That's not how it works.
What does government produce? What do they produce?
Well,
can't answer it.
Well, the only thing
because they don't
war. The only thing that they actually produce is defense of your country.
War.
Okay, I mean that's one of these things. The defense of your country, and
they don't produce nothing.
And that's about it.
They don't. Government produces nothing.
Yeah.
They take from us. They take in the form of taxation. They take in the form of regulation. They take in the form of stealing our liberty. And that's where they get their power. That's where they get their money. They don't produce anything. Then they get in there and they think they can do whatever they want with our money, and they can tell us and boss us around and just terrorize us. And then you get a new boss in there and he's like, all right, we're not doing things this way anymore. We're not wasting money. We're not threatening the American people. We're not going to go out and stir up division and instability in the world. We're actually going to bring peace. And that's something Trump is trying to do right now. He's trying to bring peace in the Middle East, in Ukraine and Russia. Well, if we get peace there, then China, they're not going to go in Taiwan. So now we're not looking at World War III. Now we're looking at peace. Well, you know something else he said? He said, once we get peace and things cool down a little bit, we're going to sit down with Russia. We're going to sit down with China. We're going to lower our nukes. We're going to lower our defense spending, because it's better to be getting along and spending money on things that benefit the people instead of looking at each other with distrust and hatred like you want to kill them.
And wouldn't it cause some people to go into a tizzy if Trump gets some sort of a Nobel Peace Prize in the future years?
He's going to get that Peace Prize. He's going to get more than a Peace Prize. He's going to go down as the greatest president this country has ever seen. And we'll see y'all again after this short break.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Welcome back, Iredell County. This is your host, Micah Phelps with the Canaan Report, and we got the special Captain K in the studio with us. Captain, how you feeling, man?
I feel real good.
Are you feeling good?
I feel good.
How do you feel good when we're sitting here looking at all this filth, all this fraud, all this waste, all this abuse? We got the bureaucrats running wild. You know all about these bureaucrats, though, don't you?
Yeah, but it always gets, when you're trying to do something new, maybe you're trying to develop a new product or you're trying to innovate. Yeah. It's always really messy in the beginning.
It is.
It's like a big ball of twine. Imagine a line. It's like this big mess. And then you'll see the upward progress.
We're starting to see some progress as we're finding out where our tax dollar is going. We're starting to understand the system a lot better, too, because as all this stuff takes place and they expose everything, well, people understand what's really going on. And people get it. They're smart out there. They're not fools, even though the fake news likes to think we're fools. And before the next election, we're going to find everyone that y'all are lying to out there, and we're going to get them the truth, because y'all's time is over dividing us.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's going to publish, will publish a report or maybe series of reports. And it's nothing he's got to make up.
Yeah.
It's just going to come from the data.
Yeah.
The data will show we spent so many billions of dollars on this junk. It's not going to be made up.
No.
Because it's all there.
Yeah. And it's going to be, and we're going to do shows on it. We're going to expose it all. We're going to tell people where the money went, because we're fed up with it. We can't allow this stuff to happen again. But the bureaucrats, what's a bureaucrat? You know what a bureaucrat is, Reese? Reese, you don't know what a bureaucrat is? You young man, you ain't figured it out yet. I know there's a lot of young people out there. Cap, you're an older man. Tell us, what's a bureaucrat?
Well, I don't know if the technical definition, but it's like you were saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a non-value added administrative roadblock.
It's a government employee that works for the executive branch. They carry out the wishes of the agency head, whatever agency the government created for these people to operate from. They get a yearly budget. They're given tasks that they're supposed to do things. Bureaucrats, a lot of them, like that's their profession. Okay. They're working within the ranks of government and they're trying to be the best employee possible. Because one day, you know what they want to do?
They want to be promoted to something.
They want to run that agency.
Yeah.
That's what they want to do. So they're out there, they're kissing everybody's hind end the best they can because they understand, you know how to get ahead in government? You got to kiss the boss's hind end. You got to get them votes. You got to make them look good. And that's what bureaucrats do. They focus on making the politicians look good. Well, in the case of Iredell County, you could say they try to make politicians look bad, but that's for another day. But that's what the bureaucrats do. Cities is real bad. You know, city elections, they're carried out in the off years of off years. Well, there's a reason for that because they want to have them in the off years because the only one who votes during that time are city employees. So everyone out there, they're campaigning for the boss. They're campaigning for a promotion. That's why we never get no change in the cities. But that's our bureaucrats out there. They exist off our tax dollars. They produce nothing. They produce nothing except headaches for the private sector, headaches for the people out there trying to run businesses, hiring people, the producers, the people who produce things with their time. They're getting hassled by the bureaucrats. That's life.
But you know what's so true about government organizations is they spend, and I can tell you this from personal experience. Mm-hmm. So you have an organization, certain number of headcount, and certain number of budget. Well, your role as a bureaucrat, you grow in power and strength by increasing your headcount, increasing your budget. Yeah. Okay? So it's a constant cycle of justifying your headcount and justifying your budget by writing lots of point papers and presentations showing that value that you provide.
And you see a lot of this in the school system, where you sit on the school board. You see, you know, the bureaucracies, and I'm not attacking them. I'm just pointing out you understand like how all these bureaucracies work on the local level too, and that just expounds upwardly.
And my comments were not referring to anything school related, but I'm just saying, just from my time in the military and working in an organization that was mostly civilian at the time. And that's very depressing when instead of actually doing the function that you're supposed to be doing, you're doing all this stuff to justify your headcount and budget.
Yeah, making up excuses for why you need more money.
Right.
And we wonder why nothing gets done.
Right.
Because if it gets done, they don't need money anymore, do they?
No. So it certainly, is it a blanket statement to say anybody in government doesn't provide any value? No, that's not a true statement. But
let me ask you one question real quick.
You don't have risk aversion. You don't have people working the extra mile, and you don't have people really busting their butt to produce something of value. You don't see it. In
all your years paying attention to politics, government, working in it, have you ever seen a bureaucrat or a politician for that matter who actually went out and advocated to remove his own job and was successful at it in the process?
No.
I can name only one.
No.
You know who that is? Nigel Farage, British Parliament now. Yeah. He ran for the European Union over there for about 20 years or so ago because he wanted the British out of the European Union because he's a very limited or freedom-minded person. He doesn't like bureaucracy. So for 20 years, he's saying, Britain, we need to get out of the European Union. Now, meanwhile, he's an elected MP representing Britain to the European Union. And finally, he got rid of it. He got Britain out. Well, his last speech, he's like, see y'all. Y'all said this day would never happen. Here we are. Bye-bye. The only politician I've ever seen who got elected for the sole purpose of removing their authority, their responsibility, everything they were doing. And that's beautiful to me. Mm-hmm. How many people do that? How many people get power and give it back to the people? You know, we're going to have an issue coming up real soon with our education system because, you know, we're getting rid of the Department of Education. It's going bye-bye. They're going to transfer the core functions to other agencies on the way out. But the federal government's going to be out of education. So you know who's going to be responsible then? Our state governments.
Yeah, here's something interesting. I think across North Carolina, I think the number is like around 50,000. Yeah. There are 50,000 people in the school districts and in the state system. Their job is to do work that's directly related to the monies we get from federal government. Yeah. So their jobs exist to manage these federal programs.
And we wonder why only 13% gets to the classroom.
How about those 50,000 people go into the classroom?
Yeah.
Instead of managing money.
We got a teacher shortage, don't we?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
I wish I was
that's my opinion, of course. Yeah. But it's just that when you have people, tens of thousands of people that all they do is manage programs that are related to federal money, where's the value added? You could say, the value is we get the money.
Look at what they're spending the money on. Bunch of garbage and nonsense. The crap that's been going on under our nose while they lie to us about it. We're going to expose it all. And we're going to do it right once we come back from this short break. Welcome back, Iredell County. This is your host, Micah Phelps with the Canaan Report. We were just talking about Doge with our good friend, Captain K. Michael Kubiniec, he serves on the Iredell County School Board. He's also served 33 years in the Navy. 30 years in the Navy.
30 and change.
30 and some change.
Yeah.
You're very well versed on military matters, we could say, right?
Sure.
You've been studying the art of war for a long time. So defense is a big one. Our military is a big one. A lot of changes taking place in the military right now. We got Pete Hegseth, Department of Defense. One thing Pete came through, first thing he did, he got rid of Miley's picture on the wall. He's looking to demote Miley from a 4-star down, just because all the political shenanigans that he, and clearly when Biden got in there, he kept Miley. Well, clearly Miley was up to no good because why would he keep him? They were undermining Trump on the way out, and that's why his pictures got taken down. But they're making a bunch of changes in the military. They kicking transgenders out. You're no longer allowed in there. Apparently, if you need to take medication to maintain this gender transition, you're probably not much of a war fighting capability. But they're gone. A lot of other changes. Fort Bragg brought that back. That was a good thing.
Or a different Bragg.
Yeah, but it's back to
like
Fort
a World
Bragg.
War II was a World War II or Korean hero private.
That's one thing that really chapped my hind end about the left. They get in there and they want to change all of our history, all of our monuments, all the names because it was in the Civil War. Oh my God, our past. Let's not talk about our past because it's too emotional. It's too damaging. We don't want to talk about it. Let's just try to change our past to fit our ideology, which is just transgender crazy.
Speaking of the Civil War memorials.
Yeah.
So Civil War ends, 1865, right?
Yeah.
So 50 years later, probably most people don't realize this, but 50 years after the Civil War, there were still a lot of Civil War soldiers still alive. Yeah. And at the time in our country, that was a deliberate time of healing to really reconcile that whole war. Mm-hmm. And so one thing that happened during that time were lots of monuments were built, both Confederate monuments and Union monuments to recognize the sacrifice of the everyday soldier.
That maybe it was there to remind us, hey, we already went through an era where we tried to kill each other because we didn't agree.
Right. So if you've ever been to Gettysburg, for example, it's got all kinds of monuments and things there, and then around the country.
Yeah.
So when you look at history, like here it is, 2025, you can't use the lens of today to look back in history because every generation thinks they're the best generation.
Of course.
They're the most enlightened,
Yeah.
the most knowledgeable, intellectual. And so you can't, with very few exceptions, I mean, you can always look back and say that the Holocaust was true evil.
Yeah.
Okay. But you can't just always say, well, you know, that monument for that lone soldier, Confederate soldier, it's this, that, and the other thing, because you don't know why it was put there in the first place.
Most people don't know.
So,
Heck, nobody even knew, like the little statue in Statesville there for the longest. No one knew who owned it.
right.
No, they had to do some digging for that. But to just attack our history, that's craziness. And to change names of military bases because they offend someone, you know, our military is there to do one thing: kill the enemy and get home, keep us safe. And the whole DEI nonsense that they push through the military, that's gone now. We're not spending money on that.
I mean, it's non-value added.
No,
As I said.
it's just racism. That's all it is.
You know, it's like when I was in the military, none of these things ever came up in any discussion, ever.
No.
We never had training like, okay, let's talk about racial values and racial this or racial that.
It's the racists who are making that crap up and wasting our time with it. They need to be out there shooting, getting better marksmanship, learning how to operate the machinery better. Because now, I mean, you've been following Ukraine and Russia. I mean, that's just drone warfare now. I mean, that's the future. So that the days of putting humans in the line of fire, that's quickly coming to an end. And if we as a world do not learn how to live together, it's not the nukes that are killing us, it's the robots, you know, because we're building them right now. And I don't want us to have to fight that war. I'd like us to, you know, go to Mars, go to other planets, explore the solar system, you know, expand humanity and not end it because we are a bunch of narcissists who don't know how to talk and agree and come together and build consensus and ask what's best for the American people. You know, what's best is getting to the bottom of why $720 billion is being siphoned out of Social Security every year. You know, where the money's going. That's a fortune right there. We could rebuild our roads, rebuild our schools, rebuild the military all in 1 year if we just got that fraud and waste back. So Democrats, they need to shut up for a little bit. Military, though, what do you think's going on? We got peace happening in Ukraine right now. You see that transpiring?
Well, we'll see where that goes. But
I see people trying to stop it.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see that everybody wants it to stop.
Yeah.
Okay. So what, Russia's or Ukraine's lost or what? 20% of their property or something, land, whatever. So there's going to be a concession of land.
Yeah.
Okay. There'll be a concession of whether Ukraine gets in NATO or not. There'll be a concession there.
Well, that's why Russia went into Ukraine in the first place, is because they were going to join NATO.
Yeah, and there's going to have to be some guarantees, if you will, to prevent this from happening again.
Well, let's look back at all the world wars past 100 years. Where were they? Where'd they take place? In Europe.
Yep.
Europe seems to be the crazy ones who can't get along and start world wars. Meanwhile, they're taking advantage of us on trade, and we're paying for their security. All that looks to be changing. You know, they're having a meeting, like a summit of all the EU leaders. France is telling them all to come together. You know, when I look at these European politicians, Vance just gave a speech at Munich, and he called them all out to their faces. He said, y'all are turning into a bunch of little tyrants who can't take criticism, and you want to silence anyone who says anything bad about you because you're so weak you can't put up with it. And that's what I see from Europe. A lot of weakness, a lot of dishonesty, a lot of thievery, a lot of socialism.
Well, they took advantage of us. We let ourselves be taken advantage of by funding the deterrence for since the 1940s to present. We've allowed us to be suckers to fund that. And when Trump got elected in 2016, out of, 28 NATO countries, only 6 of them had paid enough.
They were kicking into NATO.
Right. 6. It was U.S., Greece, Poland, like Estonia, Latvia, and I think it was the UK.
Yeah. Well,
That's it.
Polish got to spend money on defense.
Yeah. So now with 30 countries, I guess, it's like around 22. So Trump went in and said, you guys got to pony up and start paying. And everybody got in a tizzy about it. And Germany today still is not at 2%.
No.
But they have to realize they need to pay up.
Yeah. Well, there's Germany, they have the AFP party. They're what would you consider a more libertarianish party. They believe in giving freedom back to the people and not having a strong state. They're against the whole political establishment there, and the whole political establishment's against them. They try to slander them and lie about them, and all they want to do is give freedom back to the people. Elon Musk has actually been backing them up on X, and their politicians are going crazy for it.
Well, it's probably a little
because they're a
myopic,
bunch
too.
of babies.
Well, you can't just, just think everything is going to always be la la land. And look, since the dawn of time, since millennia, after millennia, look, countries invade other countries.
Yeah.
And leaders do things that are not what we should. But that's just how it's always been.
Yeah.
So are you going to just put your head in the sand and pretend that you have no potential threats?
Well, there's always someone out there to get you, because people. Adam Carolla, is about 16 years ago. He went off on this rant on the millennials. I wish I could play that on the radio, but he cussed a lot in it, so we can't. But anybody look it up on Google, YouTube. He was calling all this stuff out. He said, sometimes people, they just can't live beside each other and see them getting it good. Because you got a lot of jealousy out there. You got a lot of hatred, and you got a lot of haters out there, people who just don't want to see someone else getting it because their life sucks so bad. And maybe their life sucks because they're such haters. But our military, we're looking like we're getting peace out there. I'm very happy about that. Very happy about that. You know why? Because I don't want to have to go fight that war.
Well, the military's role, in addition to winning the wars, is to preventing them in the first place.
Yeah. I don't think we should fight wars because politicians are stupid, especially weak ones. Like if I was living in Europe right now and those were my politicians and they said we had to go to war, I'd be thinking, well, maybe we ought to get some people and dispose of you, you little weak coward. You think you can command us, But that's what I look at Europe is, just a lot of weakness out there, a lot of socialism.
It's become very socialist because they want to be just so internal.
Yeah.
And so, like it or not, instead of spending money on the military to deter Russia, right, they are spending it on
socialism,
their own, whether it's high-speed rail or their roads or their pensions or whatever, they want, and they were counting on us to do it.
They're spending their money on socialist policies and probably transgender parties too, while they look to us to pay all the bills for their defense. I don't think that's right anymore.
Well,
I'm tired of paying for it. I'm tired of paying for weak people to take advantage of us. And then we got to protect them. We got to protect them when they should be protecting themselves. And that's what Pete Hegseth's making them do.
No,
We'll be back. Welcome back, Iredell County. We were just exposing all the nonsense that's been taking place in our federal government in D.C. and Mordor, in a place that just a very bad place. But this is the Canaan Report. I'm Micah Phelps. We got Captain K. We were just talking about the military and all the changes taking place there, how we probably might have peace in the world soon, having a strong leader in America. When they know you mean it, they don't get out of line, do they? They don't get out of line. But Cap, you've been in the military. You see what's going on. If you could tell Pete Hegseth and all them 4-star generals something for us, what would it be?
Well, let's take a trip around the globe.
Hmm.
Okay. So you've heard more about the Monroe Doctrine lately, right? So the Monroe Doctrine from President Monroe, essentially within our own hemisphere, we would not tolerate military intervention from foreign powers.
Yeah.
Okay. So the whole talk of the Panama Canal and
Yeah.
the Chinese influence
Mhm.
on the ends of the canal,
They're out now.
right? So then also think about, the discussion of, purchasing Greenland.
Yeah.
Okay. So you could just hold off on a second. Oh, what a crazy idea, whatever.
Mhm.
But was it a crazy idea when Jefferson went to France to buy the Louisiana Purchase?
Nope.
Was it that crazy of an idea that we bought Alaska from Russia?
Nope.
Okay. So maybe they were thought of being crazy at the time, but since we are, hundreds of years later after the Louisiana Purchase, those were essential things that we needed for our country. So I think when Trump puts forth ideas like that, maybe some of them are metaphors, maybe some of them are meant to be a little provocative, but it starts a conversation that I think is helpful.
It's his leadership style. It's something I like to do too. And this is the whole philosophy behind it. You see a room of people, right? What I want to do is throw in a grenade, cause a bunch of chaos, see what happens, then go move a little bit more. All right. Then when things kind of get stirred, or not stirred, but they kind of stop moving, you throw in another grenade, then you come by and you make peace of all them crazy. That's Trump's style. And we need some shaking up around there right now.
Yeah.
He's shaking the world up.
Now, you've heard a lot about our national debt,
Yeah.
right? Being the national security risk for us.
Yeah.
I believe that's true. And hopefully Congress is going to start seeing some light
The
on
GAO audit's what you're
that.
talking about.
All of that.
Yeah.
But, China is our number one geopolitical threat.
Yeah.
And they've taken advantage of
Dumb politicians.
weakness that we've seen, the Afghanistan pullout,
Mm-hmm.
the lack of deterrence of Russia. So they've seen weakness. They've taken advantage of that in expanding their reach in the Western Pacific.
Hong Kong, they took that over recently.
Hong
That was their
Kong,
latest expansion, was
right?
Hong
And
Kong.
then building up some remote islands.
Well, they have the biggest Navy in the world right now.
Yeah.
You're a Navy guy. You should know that.
Yeah.
They're just churning out battleships left and right. They just introduced a bunch of new jets, a bunch of bombers, fighter jets. China, they want a place on the world stage. And if anyone's ever studied ancient Chinese war philosophy, they're winning right now as far as I'm concerned. They really are. But they have one party government. There's no opposition in that county. They don't have the freedom of speech. They don't have freedom of religion. You have one government. They call themselves communists, but I have argued for years, for decades even, that they're not communists, because communists, they control labor. They control production. They control the economy. China, they allow free markets, but at the same time, they own a piece of the company, and that's just to make sure they don't undermine their government. So what their government, their economy, what it aligns more with is 1930s Germany than 1930s China or Russia, because Russians were the communists. Germany were the fascists. And that's really what China is. But at the same time, you got 1 billion plus people there.
Yeah, but China is always, the government's always spring-loaded to assimilate the market, the free market in China. So,
I mean, for the most part, they allow free markets to fluctuate. People have the freedom to go out there and create businesses and get money. That's what makes great economies, is free markets. Adam Smith, he settled this 250 years ago in Wealth of Nations. Great book if anyone out there hasn't read it yet. But he broke down free markets, economies, what makes nations great. Sadly, they don't teach that stuff anymore, do they? Still teaching Adam Smith, do you know? Wealth of Nations.
I don't know.
You
I
don't
don't know
know.
if they're still teaching it, but
I tell you.
But getting back to your question, so the whole Taiwan question, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And if China were to invade Taiwan,
By law, we have to defend them.
That will create a worldwide depression.
Mm-hmm.
So if you own any stocks, and I'm not a financial advisor, but I would sell everything
Well,
as
Taiwan,
soon as you can, because it's going to cause the whole world economies to crumble because they produce all the major computer chips in Taiwan.
We used to produce them here in America.
Yeah.
We used to a long time ago, but then we gave it all away to Taiwan. I don't understand why. That's one reason Trump put the tariffs out there. There's going to be I don't know if Taiwan puts tariffs on us or how that'll affect them.
Well,
they'll end it. If there are tariffs, they'll go away real
look,
quick.
I used to work for a company that made equipment that made computer chips.
Yeah.
And so it started out where we would sell more and more of our technology to Taiwan because they were a friendly Chinese nation, if you will, and the cost of labor is cheaper. The markets over there, you got access to markets over there. We sell a lot of computer equipment, making equipment into China, not top generation technology, but which I never understood that we were still selling them chip making equipment into China.
Well, we passed that CHIPS Act about 3 years or so ago, and that was supposed to pay for the infrastructure.
It's going to take a long time.
Why? These companies have the money. They don't need the taxpayer to pay for their infrastructure. What they need is for the government to get out their way and just let them do it. Don't kill them to death with permits and regulations and all this other nonsense. Just let them build their buildings so they can produce here. Federal government has blocked a lot of that. And it goes back to the bureaucrats. You know, the bureaucrats, they have to approve all this nonsense. Well, what dictates what a bureaucrat does? They've already plainly showed they're not going to do what the politicians want them to do. So how do you hold these people accountable? My only suggestion is just to remove the agency is exactly what they're doing. Give us back our freedom. Let us keep our money and let us build our buildings. And maybe we'll bring our chips back then. You know, instead of cutting them a check, because they already, I mean, you got these new AMD chips. They're $2,000 for a graphics processor card. Like, give me a break. And it's only a 10% increase in performance. Like, you want me to pay another $1,000, $1,500 for something new, and it's only 10%. We used to have double. Like every couple of years, you double the speed, double the memory, double. I forget what law that's called. Moore's law.
Moore's law.
Yeah, Moore's law. But we don't do that anymore. You know, we've sent it all overseas. Now Trump's put these tariffs in place, and that's just going to do great things for our country in the long term, as long as they don't give out like waivers for it. And I wouldn't be surprised if countries start lowering their tariffs too, because it's reciprocal. Yeah. And that's very smart doing that. What they charge is what we charge.
Yeah. Well, when in the Western Pacific, we got us, Japan, South Korea, Australia.
Vietnam.
That alliance has to be really strong to deter.
Yeah.
And then
Japan's building an army, though. They're increasing funding right now.
In fact, we don't have time to talk into about major exercises taking place with France, of all people, in the Western Pacific. And then the military has got to get back to the core mission and eliminate all the distractions, all the wasteful spending, whether it's on DEI training or whatever it's on. Get rid of all those weapon systems that are obsolete, and we don't want to field them.
No. Well, you know what else we need to get rid of? All this waste, fraud, and abuse that's happening in government. Oh my goodness, we can't stand this nonsense anymore. But we'll be back after a short break, and we're going to close out the show, baby. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, Iredell County. This is the final segment to the Canaan Report. We got Captain K in the studio with us today, and of course, I'm your host, Micah Phelps, and we were just doing our best to explain all the nonsense that's been happening the past 4 years. When they stole our government, cheating in the election, and we saw what they did with it. They took our tax money. They paid off the fake news to lie to us, to gaslight us. They had their social media companies. They were shadow banning us, taking our voice away, making sure no one heard us. It was all a war for information. A war for them to put out information that was dishonest, that was untruthful, that was unwise, that was destructive, very destructive for our country. We got inflation for it. We got Our businesses ran in the ground, fined, destroyed, people threatened them. I saw Mark Zuckerberg. He did a show with Joe Rogan. And he said, man, Biden people, they were calling us every day, threatening us. Well, now it comes to find out USAID was funding the political nonsense in Europe to censor and control what American social media companies do throughout the whole world, not just within Europe, but all over. So there's this massive censorship machine, and I was victim of it. I've got many strikes on people's YouTube accounts.
You trust Mark Zuckerberg?
I trust him to care about his own self-interest. And that's all it is at the end of the day. I mean, he's got a business to run. And when you have a government threatening you.
Well, that's not what he's been doing the last 4, 6, 8 years.
Mark Zuckerberg is not Elon Musk. Okay. Elon Musk, they messed with him and he fought back. Mark Zuckerberg, they messed with him and he did what they told him to do. So some men are just built different than other men.
Well, I don't think he's got the high moral ground.
I don't.
And, the election's over, and where's he going? On a plane to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, well, let's not forget.
To kiss butt.
Exactly. Some, like I said, some men are weak, and they'll do what they're told. And some men, you try to put them in a cage, and they're going to kick, they're going to dust up, they're going to jump that fence, and they're going to run away. And that just happens to be the breed of men we come from. But we want to finish out this final segment. We're going to try to talk about the future, what it's going to look like, what we can look forward to. One future I know is we're going to keep bucking. We're going to keep bucking on the Canaan Report. We're going to keep putting the truth out there. We're going to do that for the people. Future, what's happening in your future? I know you got some meetings.
You know what I think? I think those who are conservative, conservative Christian Republicans, and even those who are not affiliated with a party, who are like-minded, have to be more involved in the political process. Yeah. They need to be engaged. And yes, we just had an election, but it's not time to take your foot off the gas pedal because we've got local elections happening this year in the county, and typically the parties don't pay attention. The Republican Party doesn't pay attention. And we lose those races. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's that they're not paying attention. I just don't think they know what they're doing. Because every 2 years, it's the same argument. We don't do nothing. We don't do nothing. Well, you're not doing nothing probably because you don't know what you're doing. And I would love to bring together an alliance of people in like Statesville and just sack everyone. Just fundamentally change the way the city's being ran. Start having some conversations on what to do with like our housing authority. We got 1,500 units in the city of Statesville. It means 1,500 single mothers that are living on a system that's not very beneficial to them. What I like to do is just abolish that sucker. You know how we're abolishing agencies everywhere. Let's just abolish the housing authority and we'll take all those homes and we'll just sign the deeds over to the people living in them and let the private sector figure it out. You know what we just did? We created 15 homeowners overnight with just a stroke of the pen. There's a lot of free market stuff we need to do. I would do away with a lot of the code enforcement. Just start setting up like free market zones. Just remove any kind of government influence. Because I got a buddy, he's been trying to build some buildings in the city. And they're like pulling his permits, costing him all kinds of money. So the cost that government adds to the private sector is just, it's unbearable. It's unbearable, especially when you got $720 billion being siphoned out of Social Security every year. Crazy, but you got some stuff coming up. What we got? We got a Patriot Men meeting,
right? So there's a club called the Iredell Republican Patriot Men.
Yeah, Terry Sharp runs, or not Terry Sharp, Terry Gentle. Yeah, Terry Sharp I had on last week. I get them.
So
mixed
this
up
Thursday at 6:30.
Yeah.
At the Hilton Garden Inn at exit 33.
Okay.
He's standing up a monthly meeting for South Iredell.
South Iredell.
So hopefully more folks from Mooresville, South Iredell area come out, get involved. You can get something to eat at the restaurant, at the Hilton Garden Inn. If you want something to drink, you can get that too.
Yeah. Now, this is the Iredell Republican Patriot Men, right?
That's right.
Now, not the other Iredell Republican men's group.
No, this is the
Patriot men. This is the real men out
Art
there.
of-
Yeah, it's the
Art of
real
Republican
men.
Patriot men.
We like the
Right.
Patriots
So
out there.
if you're curious, if you're even women,
Yeah.
women can be members.
Yeah.
Come on out this Thursday, 6:30 at the Hilton Garden Inn next to
Mhm.
Jeffrey's Restaurant.
That's the Iredell Republican Patriot Men, ran by Terry Geno. That's the
Yeah.
real Republican
Yeah.
men's
Yeah.
group in the county.
yeah.
That's the one you want to join. Don't waste your time with the other.
Yeah. Here's the thing, like I talked about more. I mean, if you like what's going on with Elon and Trump and the whole Doge thing, right? If you
Yeah.
really like what's going on,
Yeah.
we should be thinking about, well, what can we do at the state level to replicate
Yeah.
it? What can we do at the county level to replicate it, right?
What are we doing at the school level to replicate
Because
it?
Trump is not going to fix everything in 4 years. It's not going to happen.
No.
It's going to take forever just to get a few bills passed through Congress.
Yeah.
So I look at it like this. I call it 2 for 12.
Mhm.
2 years, 2 years, get some key legislation passed, do what he says he's going to do, keep Congress,
Mhm.
right? House and Senate in 2
Yeah.
years. 2 for 12 means in 4 years, whoever is the torch bearer from Trump,
Mhm.
whether it's Vance or someone else,
Mhm.
gets elected to keep running with this football.
Mhm.
And then that another 8 years, 2
Mhm.
terms, is the 12. So
Mhm.
2 for 12, that's what I call it.
Well,
We need to stay energized to produce those elections in order to get the results we need.
one thing I'm very happy about is how fast things change. You remember the Pete Hegseth nomination, right? We were all upset and mad that we had a bunch of scumbag Republican senators who weren't playing with the team. And I'm talking about Collins, Murkowski, and McConnell.
You're missing one.
Who was the other one?
Tom Tillis.
Yeah, people aren't happy with Tillis. Not at all. Not across North Carolina. And I understand why they're not happy. I mean, he basically rubber stamped he's the one who got rid of family values. You know, when they codified it in the federal government, all the nonsense, all the transgender stuff, all the gay marriage, he codified that crap. He sold out all the family values across North Carolina. But people are not happy with Tom Tillis. He's the one who was behind that little Pete Hegseth news article at the final hour. You know, he's trying to stop Trump's appointments. I don't understand that.
Well, it's funny that Tom Tillis went to John Thune, Senate leader,
Yeah.
the night before and says, I don't think I'm going to vote for Hegseth.
Yeah.
Thune says, well, you go tell Trump that.
Yeah.
He says, it's not my problem.
Yeah.
It's your problem.
And
You go tell Trump that.
we have one opportunity to go through and get the Leviathan, get the beast, and get it back under control. Just one opportunity. And if these little scumbag politicians, these little rats out there want to get in the way of making America great again, I don't know we probably won't get the majority again. You know, because you got to produce results. See, the Democrats, they didn't win because they were too worried about what people thought about them while they didn't do anything. Republicans, we face a lot of criticism. We got the fake news out there. We had our own government funding against us, you know, funding all these NGOs, kicking money everywhere. We'll probably have to come in next week and talk about George Soros and all the money he got and all the damage he did to our judicial system, because we're seeing now what some of these judges, you know, they're all bought and paid for too, especially on the Democrat side. You know, they have no values. They have no principles. They have no, you know, basic core functions, which determines right and wrong. They jump from all over the place just to try to stay relevant. So why would their judges rule with any kind of knowledge or wisdom or whatever? How does a Democrat judge get on there? Like these people stopping Trump.
But it all starts at the local level.
Yeah.
And Ardell County is a leader in North Carolina for conservative Christian values.
It is.
We're a leader.
We are.
And so we need to stay involved, stay energized, because we're going to have, like I said, we got elections coming up in the fall for Mooresville, Statesville, Harmony, Troutman, and so on. And then in 2 years, you've got a congressional and a Senate race in North Carolina with Tom Tillis.
Yeah.
So the more people are involved at the local level, we can determine the elections.
Well, the best way to get involved in Iredell County is to tune into the Canaan Report every week.
Yeah.
Watch us. Let us.
And you can tune into something else. Next Tuesday,
What's that?
okay, I got another announcement.
What's that?
Next Tuesday at 6:30 at that same Hilton Garden Inn, exit 33, I'm going to hold an education town hall.
Okay.
It's not a Board of Education function. It's just my own personal function, just to have people come up, share what their concerns are, what's going on with education, share some information. Maybe folks can, have some issues of concern they have and things they want addressed, and I'll see what I can do to bring those to the right people's attention and just share information.
Well, Cap, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. You came on, a member of our school board, and we didn't talk about one thing to do with education. Not easy to do because we have such a mess on the federal level. Cap,
Fun to talk about some other things.
thank you, sir. Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
for coming in. Iredell County, we're going to keep holding the line out there, folks, and we'll do it next week. So thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.